Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Historical Archive, or what the series is called, Maritime Mystery. Welcome to episode 3. Today we're going to be talking about the RMS Lusitania. Not only the biggest, but the fastest for our time. We're going to talk about her construction and the aftermath of her sinking. Without any further ado, let's begin. The Lusitania was made by the Cunard Line. The Cunard Line were the main rivals of the White Star Line. The Lusitania also had a sister ship, this sister ship being the Mauretania. The Lusitania was meant to be the fastest and the biggest ship to ever set sail. The reason why the Lusitania was built was because another company named the IMM, owned by a man named J.P. Morgan, threatened the British shipping industry. They told this to the British government, and the British government gave them money to build 2 ships. These ships were the Lusitania and the Mauretania. The British government gave a list of required things that should be on both ships. One of these being a double bottom. The Lusitania and Mauretania were not only meant for passenger service, they are also meant for war. If ever a war to break out, like World War I, both ships would turn into armed merchant vessels. The Lusitania would start its maiden voyage on September 7, 1907. It would arrive at Liverpool that day, pick up passengers, and then go to Queenstown on September 8, 1907. After it went to that place, it would go across the ocean to New York City and would arrive there at September 13, 1907. Not breaking the speed record, but still being really fast. A voyage on October 1907 would win the Lusitania the blue ribbon, meaning that Lusitania was the fastest and biggest ship around. But not for long, because on December 1907, the Lusitania's sister ship, the Mauretania, went even faster than her, beating the speed record and stealing the blue ribbon from the Lusitania, meaning that Lusitania was not the fastest ship around anymore. But in 1909, the Lusitania would reclaim her blue ribbon, would be the fastest ship around once again. This is mainly because Cunard had changed the propellers of the Lusitania. But sadly, in the same year, the Mauretania would take the blue ribbon from the Lusitania once again. On January 10, 1910, the Lusitania encountered a giant rogue wave and hit the bow of the ship. The rogue wave would cause damage to the bridge, as you can see in this photo, but luckily this damage was repaired. World War I would start on July 28, 1914. As I said in the beginning, the Lusitania would be converted for war, if war ever happened. But they didn't actually take the Lusitania. They returned to passenger service, possibly mainly because they wasted too much fuel to be an armed merchant vessel. There was one change, this one change being the Lusitania's funnels. The Lusitania's funnels were painted a dark gray color to disguise it from enemy submarines. But right before we get to Lusitania's final voyage, we need to talk about Germany. Now Germany has this thing called U-boats. Now U-boats are like a type of submarine. The British government at first underestimated the power of these U-boats, started to torpedo things. And there is this newspaper, you can actually probably see it right now on the screen, which has an ad for the Lusitania and then has a warning from Germany that says that anyone who is crossing the Atlantic has a possible chance to be torpedoed. Now a lot of people who were boarding the Lusitania originally laughed this off. On May 1st, 1915, the Lusitania would depart New York for the final time, heading to Liverpool. Right now what you see are photos when the Lusitania was leaving New York on May 1st, 1915. Now there is a full video of the Lusitania actually leaving. I will link that down in the description if you want to see that. It's a full video, but right now I'm only showing you photos from that video. The captain of the Lusitania was a man named William Thomas Turner. It took off for its voyage and it seemed like a normal voyage. It was until May 7, 1915. It's May 7, 1915. The Lusitania is nearing its end of its journey. As getting nearer to Liverpool, this U-boat was U-20. U-20 was actually watching the Lusitania, but Lusitania was still a very fast ship, could not catch up with the Lusitania, until one fatal decision would change the course of Lusitania. Lusitania changed course. This course change led the Lusitania right into the direction of the U-boat. U-20 would fire the torpedo at the Lusitania. Crew on the bridge would see bubbles of the torpedo as it neared closer to the Lusitania. At 2:10 p.m., the torpedo would hit the Lusitania on the starboard side. Right after the torpedo hit, a sharp starboard list would be present on board the Lusitania. And just then, a second explosion comes out of the Lusitania. It's 2:12 p.m. on board the Lusitania. A distress message is sent from the Marconi wireless room. Meanwhile, on the decks, panic ensues. When the torpedo hit one of the lifeboats, detached and fell into the water. 2:13 p.m. The Lusitania is rapidly letting in water. Just then, the power of the Lusitania would go out, leaving people who are stuck in the Lusitania trapped in darkness. Which, side note, is similar to the Empress of Ireland, when people were trapped in the lower decks as the ship ran out of power. Another thing that happened was that the water was not only getting in from the hole that the torpedo made. Another way water was getting into the ship was due to portholes being open. A lot of portholes were open on the starboard side, and when the Lusitania got deep enough, water started to come into those portholes, making the Lusitania sink even faster. Lifeboats that were being launched on the port side were deadly. Why? Because every time a lifeboat was launched on the port side, the starboard list was so sharp that there was basically no way. The lifeboat would touch the Lusitania and then flip over, dropping many people in the water. Now, these lifeboats actually were never ordered by the captain to be lowered. The captain has not even given out the order, not yet at least. But at 2:19 p.m., the captain would give out the order to officially lower lifeboats. The reason why the captain waited so long to lower the lifeboats was because the Lusitania was going really fast, and he was trying to slow down the Lusitania before lowering these lifeboats. At that same time, the first lifeboat is successfully launched from the starboard side. At 2:20 p.m., horror would struck as two lifeboats were lowered on top of each other. It's 2:22 p.m. on board the Lusitania. Water starts to creep up onto the bow of Lusitania. The captain is on the bridge with some of the other crew. He releases all the crew and stays on the bridge, watching the Lusitania slowly sink. At 2:25 p.m., the propellers are completely out of the water. At 2:26 p.m., the Lusitania would hit the seabed. This will cause the Lusitania to settle back as it slowly goes into the water. At 2:28 p.m., the Lusitania would go under, only taking 18 minutes to sink. "761 people survived the sinking of the Lusitania, and about 1,198 people died in the sinking of the Lusitania, sinking in only 18 minutes. A rescue fleet came to the site of the Lusitania 4 hours later, bringing all the survivors to Queenstown. Surprisingly, one of the survivors was the captain. He was standing on the bridge of the Lusitania when he was washed away from the bridge and knocked unconscious. He was saved by one of the small rescue ships. After the sinking of the Lusitania, the British government decided to spread propaganda posters. Let's get into Lusitania's inquiry. Now, the British government was trying to hide something. One of the things they were trying to hide was that the Lusitania may have had some military equipment on board that was illegal to be on board. But even with this factor, it's still a really bad reason to sink the Lusitania, with many innocent lives on board. And it's definitely apparent that they tried to put the blame on the captain. Now, if you don't know, one of the factors of the U.S. joining World War I was that the Lusitania sank. That was one of the reasons why they joined World War I in the first place. Now let's talk about the wreck. Now the wreck of the Lusitania looks like this. Lusitania's wreck is really deteriorated over time. Why is this though? Now there's two factors. The first factor is the current. The current of the Lusitania is so strong that, falling apart over the years. And the second factor is human interference. Now what do I mean by this? I mean two things. fishermen who are trying to fish and snag on the wreck with their lines. And the second one is divers. Now there's a memorial of the Lusitania and it has the real propeller. Now you know how they got that? They blew up the portion of the propeller, further deteriorating more of the ship. So that's also a factor. And finally, in the 1990s and 80s, somewhere between there, the actual structure of Lusitania collapsed on itself, making it more look like this. And that is the story of Lusitania. If I did get anything wrong, please let me know in the comments, because I always want to make my videos the most accurate, historically accurate. If I did get something wrong, please let me know. And finally, credits to Jack, I hope I'm saying this right, Jack G Animations. That was the photos of the animation that you saw today. And yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. The next episode, episode 4, will be covering the deadliest maritime disaster in history. So, stay tuned for that. I'll see you on the next time. Goodbye!